Okay.
Hey, this is Anna Brown. I'm lucky enough to have Anna Brown with Keller Williams Reserve in Palm Beach Gardens here with me, talking about condos. And we started doing this whole series on condos because in the state of Florida, we've got a lot happening and there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle. Talking about insurance, talking about lending, um, talking about the legal side of it, talking about the management side of it, but also talking about the sales side of it. And so I wanted to talk to different people in different locations around Florida, specifically around Florida, to talk about how we're seeing that these issues dealt with and what we're going to do about it. So Anna, okay, you are in Keller Williams Reserve in Palm Beach Gardens. Tell me a little bit about your market and like your how you do your business.
Yeah, for sure. I mostly deal with buyers, so condos and all this stuff is right in my wheelhouse. So I'm a buyer's agent. And our area, we cover a wide range in Southeast Florida, St. Lucie County, Martin County, Palm Beach County, Broward County. We can go into Miami-Dade and all the way through the Keys. So we have one of the largest MLS areas
Wow.
in Southeast Florida. So we cover a big range. The farthest I've gone is like Fort Lauderdale so far, but we can go a lot further than that as well. So yeah, and we're also selling condos right now as well. So mostly buying, but I've had a few experience on the sales side as well.
Well, so all right, so let's talk about two of the main issues that we're running across as the end of the year deadlines loom for the
Hmm.
structural studies for condos because of the Surfside condo collapse down in Miami,
Correct.
and then also for the reserve studies. Um, those two things are looming. Those deadlines are coming, which I do think is part of the reason people are scared because I don't know about you, but I'm seeing that a lot of our homeowners association, our condo associations don't have all that information in. So you're sort of acting on faith a little bit because you don't know what that assessment's going to look like in the end. In a couple of months, you're that close to it. So, which is kind of problematic. Are you kind of seeing the same thing?
I've seen a little bit of both. I've seen some where the listing we had, they've already assessed them like last year to get their reserves up, and not only for their reserves, but also to work on the roof situation as well,
Mhm.
because their roofs were older as well. So
And explain the
most
roof
of,
situation, just because if we have
yeah,
people tuning in that don't understand roofs in Florida, it's a whole
yeah.
thing.
So yeah, well, especially with, I mean, it kind of goes along with the insurance in Florida right now. We don't have many carriers in Florida right now with all of our storms, and, Citizens is mostly rating everything, but Citizens even requires roofs to have, at least 5 years left on them. And this building, it's good thing that, you know, we have these 40-year certifications now, and that they're making these buildings do this now, because these buildings have been neglected. They have been. And so it's good that, you know, not good of what happened, but it's good thing that we have these new laws in place so something like this doesn't happen again. And these buildings needed work, and because these buildings needing work and their roofs were old, they couldn't get the proper insurance anymore, to where they had to get a higher insurance deductible for the insurer to even carry them. So while that might not mean anything to you as an owner of a property, it does mean something to you if you're trying to buy in this community, because with the 8% deductible, Fannie and Freddie Mac will not let you get a loan in this community. So it's very important to know the conditions of these buildings, and that's what this law is doing, is you have to know what's going on right now, because we can only take a cash buyer or a non-QM loan on this property because of the
Mhm.
roofs. Now, luckily they are starting to redo the roofs now, so once the roofs are complete, then they can get the proper insurance policy that they need. But these laws are helping buildings get back to where they need to be, and it's just for your safety. So it shouldn't be scary. It's something, we all need to be at for your safety.
Oh, sure. And I think one of the things, the difference between your market and my market is down
Hmm.
south, you had the condo boom down in your
Hmm.
part of the state has gone on for decades. Not so much in
Yes.
Jacksonville. We have a couple of buildings that are older buildings that are fairly well maintained. They're doing and beachfront. They're doing their thing. They're doing what they need to do. Um, but we have a whole lot of newer buildings that this is affecting as well.
Mm,
And we have people up here kind of confused because it seems like a South Florida problem that's being inflicted on the North Florida market.
you're
And
right.
it isn't, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's just because we're all close to the water, and that salt water and that salt air just does wreaks havoc on all of these buildings. And down here in South Florida, we're honestly running out of land. So there
right.
is
Well,
no
you have
choice.
older buildings than we do.
Yes, but so there's no choice but us to build up, and the condos we're talking about, it has to be if it's more than 2 stories. So 2 stories and below, this doesn't affect, but because we have those giant high rises on the beach, and even the condo I'm talking about is not even anywhere near the beach, and it's still having, some things going on. So it's
Right.
not just by the beach, but all of them, have to be dealt with right
I
now.
think one of the things that has surprised me and this is where I really want to get in front of some property management companies that have
Mhm.
been struggling to do that, because I think they're struggling to process all of this because it's laid in their lap to
Mhm.
manage this, of course. But I'm seeing 20-year-old buildings that are going through the structural 20-year-old buildings that are 8 miles inland that are going
Mhm.
through this structural review, where I'm like, okay, that's cool and everything, but you're only 20 years old and you're 8 miles in. You've got 10 years before that's required.
Mhm.
I'm a I mean, I suppose it's a good thing because they're going to be in good shape. We're going to know what's up, but I
Mhm.
find it a little bit interesting that this is also
Yeah.
where we are, that they're getting so far ahead of it when there's a rush to get it completed for everybody.
Yeah. No, that's true, because those should be better built than some of the ones, we have down here, because every year obviously there's advances in how they're built and how they can
Mhm.
stand, and every year they have better
Well, and
upgrades and
the
better,
legal requirement is 30 years. Like that
right,
first structural report is at 30 years. I'm like, you were built in 2003. Why are we doing this
right,
now? I'm a little confused as to why the management companies are choosing to do this now.
right now. Yep.
And I haven't gotten a good answer. I don't know what you're seeing on something that's 25 years old and closer to the beach. Absolutely 1000%.
Hmm.
I'm a little, there seems to be some inconsistency with how these new rules are being applied from what I can
Correct.
tell. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're saying that.
Yeah, I just think they probably just had to come up with one rule and make it the same for everybody, you know.
Oh, the property management company?
Yeah. Or I didn't I don't pertain to know how well the laws are and stuff like that, but it's probably just one generic law that everybody has to follow, and they didn't get so specific on how
But
old
but
it
and I
had to
guess
be.
the reason that I'm confused is they did get specific. It's if
Oh,
you're
okay.
within 3 miles of the beach and 25 years old or older, you
Mhm.
have to do it now. If you're within 5 miles, it's 30 years.
Mm,
So a 21-year-old building, I'm like, why are we doing this? I don't know. And again, it's not. I am sure they all have their reasons, but as an agent, especially because property management companies are historically not particularly transparent with us as
right.
agents. Sometimes for
Correct.
good reason, and I can certainly understand that. I feel like that is part of the problem with getting these condos, because condos are in theory, well, and in practicality, the affordable, often first time home buyer purchase, right?
Yes,
We're now
especially
making it
down here
so
in
much
South
more
Florida.
yeah, say
The
that again, I'm sorry.
single family homes are unattainable right now for first time home buying. Our single family homes are like $650,000 right now. So it's much easier to get into a condo for 180, 200 than a single family home.
Right. Yeah, but so, and we're looking at the struggle, and as we're seeing our first time home buyer market squeeze, really squeeze, this is adding an additional squeeze to it. I feel like there's pent up purchase demand for these types of properties
Right.
that we're not addressing
Mhm.
as well as an industry, and the entire industry,
Yeah.
not just real estate, but insurance is obviously an issue. Lenders, it's an issue, because I don't know about your market, but I know there are very few condos in the Jacksonville, St. Augustine area that you can purchase with FHA financing.
I
Next to
can,
nothing.
yeah, it's next to nothing down here as well. Um, so I was hoping, with these laws, that if they can get their budgets to where they need to be and their reserves to where it needs to be, maybe it would open it to more first-time home buyers.
Well, I guess at least if we know, and I think that's also one of the things that I'm looking at is if we can, and I guess I just want it to move a little faster as we're rapidly approaching the end of the year. I mean,
Yeah.
it is coming, and we are sitting here with 12 months of condo inventory in a market where that is our buyer's market. Our townhomes and our single family homes are still, they're not quite an even market. I would still argue that they're in a seller's market, although it may not necessarily feel that way. And
Right.
I heard someone call it
Agreed.
inflation, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good word. So yeah, I kind of feel like we've got this pent up demand, but nobody wants to write a blank check. And I do not think it. We think in terms of how are people getting into condos, how are people getting out of condos,
Right.
and so we're the front line. I think the services on the end with homeowners insurance companies, or with condo insurance companies allowing the 8% deductible that is now no longer financeable. In fact, I talked to an insurance professional the other day, and I made the comment that lenders won't allow that. He did not realize that because that's not his piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Again, it's why I'm trying to have these conversations, is because I think there's a lot of puzzle pieces that aren't coming together as an industry with this, that we need to solve this problem because it needs to get
and
resolved.
it's important to ask up front because we didn't realize this either. You go under contract, and that's why now there's so many more questions you have to ask as a buyer agent trying to buy a condo, or even as the listing agent on the condo as well, because these are things you have to know up front, because if not, you're wasting time. I mean, we went under contract for 45 days thinking we were going to find a way to get this thing financed, and a year later, now we're finally getting a non-QM loan on it. But this poor lady had to put her life on hold for a year just to find a qualified buyer in this area that was willing to either do cash or a non-QM loan. So, I mean, that first buyer paid for an inspection, paid for an appraisal, spent all this
Paid for
money.
all of those things and it wasn't their fault. It didn't close.
No, and you wouldn't believe the amount of agents in that community who didn't know. So as soon as we knew, we changed our listing to cash and cash only. And you wouldn't believe the amount of showing requests we still got asking. And the first thing I called them and said, is it a conventional loan? Yeah. Nope, it's not going to work. You either need to do non-QM or this. I don't want to waste your time or my seller's time. So it's important to know these things now. If not, you're wasting people's time and money. So it's very important to know and let the lender know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I sent out the master insurance policy just so they realized what I was saying was accurate. And some agents didn't listen to me. And I said, you're under contract with the conventional loan. It's not going to go through. Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Sat on the market for under contract for 60 plus days and came right back to the market. So.
Right. And and that's what we're seeing. And I think as an industry, there's so many things as an industry that are having to be addressed, but as rapidly as I would argue, and I think you're seeing it. But tell me the statistics again, because you were saying in your market, you've got
about 8 months worth of 7 to 8 months worth of inventory, where last year it was only 4.
Right. And I'm looking at, and I don't even have the last year's numbers, but with condos, I'm looking at 12 months of specifically condos. I am able, and it depends on how our data is presented. Right. I'm able to separate just the condos from the townhomes because they are very different animals when it comes to real estate and lending. But with those condos, I'm looking at 12 months of inventory thinking we've got to do something, especially because that's where our first time home buyers that can't get into anything need to be. And I can't do that for them. So which is again why I wanted to do kind of a series of conversations to see if we can't find our way through this. And it's a statewide problem. It's not my market, it's a Florida
everybody
market.
And not everyone has 20% to put down, especially a first-time home buyer doesn't have 20% to put down on some of these condos that don't have reserves or don't have this, that, and the other, so hopefully
not everybody has the ability to do the 20% down or the ability to look and go, okay, if I get assessed $5,000, $10,000, even $2,000, is that something that I can absorb? And some of these, as we well know, these oceanfront condos, these older communities that haven't been well maintained, we're not talking about $5,000 or $10,000. We're talking
Yeah.
50,000, 100,000. We're talking
And,
significant money.
and a lot of our, a lot of the population down here is 55 plus as well. We get a lot of the snowbirds. We got a lot of the people that retire down here that are on fixed incomes, and they can't afford these assessments.
Yeah. So are you seeing venture capitalists? Are you seeing the investors coming in? And I mean, I'm getting a couple of conversations of, for again, we don't have the percentage of buildings that are going to fit into this, are going to be wildly different
Right.
for me than for you. But I'm starting to have conversations with investors going, all right, so, let me know when you see these in trouble.
The problem is down here is with these HOAs, and being a Floridian born and raised, I've been in South Florida 7 years, but came from Central Florida. So we didn't have these HOAs or these condo associations. And so moving down here was like eye-opening, and 99% of these down here have it. And most of these condos right now, it's hard to get investors in them. You might find, I don't know, 5% that you can get them into because you can't rent them right away. So
Right.
none of these investors want to come in. So not only is it you can't lease for 1 year, 2 year, now they've gone up to no leasing for 3 years. So as an investor, you can't even go in there and do anything unless you're fixing and flipping. So if you want to fix and flip, maybe, but those investors that want to then turn it into a rental property,
Can't do it. Oh, that's interesting,
mm-mm,
because we have a couple of communities like that, but it's quite,
no,
we
it's
have a couple
almost
of communities that
every,
cap the number of rentals that you can have in
yes,
there, and there's always a waiting list. Um, but it's fairly uncommon here. By the
yes.
way, Jacksonville as a market hasn't been a strong investor market until,
Mhm,
I would tell you, the last 10 years, maybe. So
mhm.
20 years ago, as they were building, they weren't concerned about that.
Yeah.
Now I think we're seeing those concerns start coming
I,
in. It's like, okay, now we got to do something.
I think with South Florida being like a destination and a big vacation hub and stuff like that, in these HOAs and condo associations, seeing people want to Airbnb it or rent it right away, they
We
saw
definitely have
their
length of
communities.
time rental restrictions. Most of them
Yeah,
are a year, for
yeah.
sure.
So they then took a look at it and said, we don't want these renters, we want just owners. So some have gone to no renting at all, and like I said, some have gone up to you can't lease for 3 years to avoid it turning into a bunch of renters, because all the
Mhm.
investors were coming down here. So they put like a halt to it. So it is very hard when you're working with an investor to actually find a property for them,
Mhm.
especially first time investors who are just dipping their toe in the water, and a condo is perfect to handle, or even a townhome. I mean, there might be 3 or 400 in the price range they're looking for, but maybe 10 you can rent right away.
Well, and I was looking more, my intention with that question, because that is a
Yeah.
really interesting point, and I didn't realize it was
Mhm,
as much as 3 years
mhm.
down there. That's crazy.
Yes.
My thing was more the larger investors, the more
Yeah.
corporate investors coming and going, wait, that building just got hit with $100,000 in
Right.
assessments for each unit. Can I swoop in and pick them up for nothing
But
and
that's becomes
then
a
convert
problem
into
as well,
apartments?
because down here it did happen in a building, and then that makes it to be where if so one owner owns so many in the building, no one can lend in that building either.
Right. Well,
So
right. But I guess my point is, I'm wondering if they
yeah,
don't necessarily, as that investor, they don't necessarily care if
right.
if you
No,
can't
but
lend,
it's
because
hard
what
if you're
that's in
in
fact
that.
what they want.
It affected a seller we had last year who had no idea that this had happened.
Mm-hmm.
When he bought into it, he didn't know, and he was using a realtor that, and this is why it's so very important to make sure you pick the right realtor that knows what they're doing, knows the market, knows these laws that we're talking about, because you get someone that doesn't know what they're doing. He bought in this building, here we're coming a year later to sell it, and he's like, I had no idea someone owned 52% of this. And to sell it, it has to be this type of loan or cash, or he had no
Right.
idea. He's like, if I would have known that, I would have never bought in this building.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm starting, especially with condo owners, having the, if I had known that, or if I had realized,
Yes.
which that is very much a situation that should have been avoided for
Mm-hmm.
sure, which is
Mm-hmm.
why the phrase, I think we need to start adding the word professional to our
Exactly.
description. We are professional realtors. This is actually
Yes.
our careers. This is something that we take very seriously. We didn't do it because we were getting in thinking that we weren't going to have to work and we'd make $300,000 a year.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. No, that is not how this industry, yeah, that's
It does
definitely
not
not how
work
it
like
works.
that.
Yeah, this is hard work, and it takes years of understanding and answering these questions before.
And I think I still learn every day. I've been doing it. It'll be 6 years next month, and I feel like still every day I'm learning something new. And you think you go to realtor school and you get that test, and let me tell you, that stuff on that test is not what we're dealing with every day at all.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh no,
yes, you
not
can pass
not even
your
a little.
test
Sorry. Okay.
and
My
have you know get the license, but you're learning real world experiences and learning real world stuff, and it's not what they teach you in school. So every day I'm still learning stuff that I had no idea about, or it's constantly evolving too, and so we have to constantly evolve with it.
Yeah. I'm thinking that we're going to have, I think I'm going to have to develop, which maybe I should have years ago, a condo questionnaire of my own for
Mm-hmm.
each condo when I go in and list,
Yep.
because these things, it's changing so rapidly, and the questions
Mhm.
that we are asking today are not questions I asked 6 months ago, even necessarily,
Correct.
but it's
Correct.
coming up now. The insurance percent, and I know that's with a lot of the renewals. That is a
Hmm.
new thing that we are shifting into. And again, I don't think that most of the insurance carriers that are doing that even understand how it affects the lending on that property and
No,
marketability of
no.
the property.
Mm-mm. And as a buyer's agent as well, it used to just be, I just need the condo reserves and make sure the reserves are okay and send it to the lender. Okay, the reserves are okay, we can put an offer in. Now it's the reserves, the insurance policy, blah blah.
Mhm.
That list keeps going. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you need a condo questionnaire as a buyer's agent, and then like a condo questionnaire on the other side if you're selling it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think in fact, I think I'm going to, along with this project that I'm working on,
Hmm.
I appreciate you so much being a part of,
Of course.
because I learned talking to you. You see different things than I see, and we're getting ready to
Mhm.
have to wrap this up because I think we've got less than a minute left on the Zoom.
Yes.
But yeah, I am learning with every single conversation that there's things that as rapidly as they're changing that I need to keep
Hmm.
up with. Um,
Yep.
but I guess it is time to wrap this up. Thank you so much. I
Oh,
so
of
appreciate
course.
your time.
Thank
I know
you. It was
you're
a
busy.
pleasure. It was
Yeah,
a
let's
pleasure.
do this again soon.
Yeah,
And we'll catch up, but there will be more questions and more conversation to come, I am certain.
I'm sure. I'm
Thank you.
sure.
Have a
Thank you.
great day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.